Welcome back everyone to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel. You are looking at, once again, the Model 565. This is a brand of machine known as White. Not the color, but the brand. It was the White Sewing Machine Company. And what I'm going to show you here today is sort of the resolution of a series of videos I've been doing on this machine because it has a hand wheel process for releasing the clutch so that you can keep the needle from moving when you want to wind a bobbin. It's a fantastic design, and I wanted to show all of you one thing because if you recall, normally when you change a belt on, let's say you're changing a motor belt on many machines, you'll see the hand wheel, and very often there's some space most of the time that you can get behind the hand wheel. And of course there's a groove, right? Because the hand wheel, remember, is just a giant pulley. That's in fact, that's why it's there. Yes, we think of it as, okay, this is the thing I help to move, to make the needle go up and down when I want to maybe start the machine or trying to move it slowly, but it's actually a pulley. And the small little pulley down here, of course, is the motor pulley. Now, I've talked to you in the past about different machines and what it normally takes to change and adjust a motor belt. On this machine, it is different. And it is also different if you take the clutch and hand wheel assembly apart. I have made some videos on that if any of you have ever managed to do so, and maybe you got stuck and couldn't figure out how to put it back. But for normal use, okay, I was taking this piece apart because I wanted to see inside of it. I'm restoring the machine, and that's different. But for normal maintenance, whether you're oiling your machine, because I haven't begun lubricating this machine yet, it needs some work, you normally don't open up this mechanism. When I say mechanism, I'm referring to the clutch mechanism. Remember that on most vintage machines, you have a knob in the center of the hand wheel. The hand wheel can look like this, but there's a big knob, and you turn it, and you can loosen it. And when you do, there's a washer behind it, and the hand wheel will spin, but you won't see needle movement. And obviously my take-up arm over there is coming up and down because I have needle movement at the moment. Needle movement at the moment. I have to be careful how quickly I say that. All right. So these machines also have their own special way to take off and put on a motor belt. Now, adjusting the motor belt, and I've talked a little bit about this in some of the videos on this machine, is adjusting the tension on the motor belt. That is actually quite similar to other machines. Again, the motor is attached to a bracket, which is attached to the body or the housing, the head of the machine as we call it. In this case, it's got two bolts. Many machines have one. This one has two, which is great. And these bolts go through slots, and then they screw into holes in the side of the machine. These slots are here, as I mentioned before, because you can raise and lower the motor up and down within a fairly small range, but that range allows you to either have enough slack in the belt to take the belt off of the motor pulley, or if you lower the motor, that will actually help you adjust the tension on the belt. That part is pretty normal for those of us who have changed belts on vintage sewing machines. Or if you look at my other videos where I talk about changing belts or adjusting belts, most of those things when I just mentioned with the bracket, those apply, and they're really not that tough at all. You don't have to take your machine into a shop to have the belt adjusted if you know how to do it. Now, getting the belt on or off. Let's say that you had one of these machines, and this, by the way, this is not the original motor belt because this would not have been original back in the early 60s. They would have used a V-shaped belt, and it was usually it was a compound of rubber and fabric. If you have ever seen an antique fan belt on a car, it kind of looked like that, but obviously sized for a sewing machine. Well, it's not unusual for belts to get tired over the years. They dry rot or they just wear out, and someone replaced this belt. Now, I don't know if a sewing machine service center changed it because I don't know when it was changed. I have no record of that. But I'm going to show you that on this machine, and this covers other models as well, I've mentioned in the other videos, We're talking White brand sewing machines, model 565, 568, 792, 793, 804, 970, and there may be others. And the reason that, or you say, well, what if my machine is a different model? How will I know if, how am I going to know if mine is one of them? When you look at your machine, if your hand wheel has this plastic cap, right, and it curves outwardly, it's a plastic cap, right? And I've shown in the other videos how to take it off, but let's start from the top. Maybe you haven't watched the other videos because you were not willing to take this mechanism apart, and if you were not, I don't blame you. But of course, I had to. I just had to. So I'm going to show you if you are going to change your motor belt. This video is not how to take this mechanism apart and put it back together. I have other videos on this machine where I showed that. If you have a machine that's running well and you've been keeping the lint clean, everything's moving, you keep it oiled, you don't need to take this entire mechanism apart, okay? What you need to do to get your belt changed is much less. And I want to make sure I demonstrate this for you because I don't want you to have to, you think, oh my God, I got to take the whole thing apart just to change the belt. You don't. Okay, before we start, I will show you, this is the belt that I found on the machine when I got it. I have, of course, inspected it. There are no cracks. And I really don't, it looks like it has a lot of life in it. Now, some belts are so bad, they're shredded, they're broken. If the belt's broken, you can obviously get it off the machine, but if you're going to put a new belt on, you're still going to have to follow the procedure I'm going to show you. So this belt is what they call a lugged belt. It's newer, but it's in great shape. And I inspect every belt on every machine that I overhaul. And even if the belt is not broken, if there are little hairline cracks, I go ahead and replace it. You don't want a belt shredding, and if the belt shreds, if it gets old enough, the shreds can get down in the machine. You don't want that. So it occurred to me that I should show you this procedure, but I thought maybe I should go ahead and mention to you how long this belt is. So what I did was I took the belt and I took a marker. Let's see if my zoom will help you to see this. And I think you can see if you follow the edge of the belt. Do you notice this little, I basically took a dry erase marker and just put a little ink mark right there, okay? And then, of course, I take this mark and I placed it. I just repositioned the camera for us. I placed my belt with my little mark on a straight edge. And you don't have to use, this is a tape measure, but you can use a ruler, whatever you have. And I simply take the mark, right? My little ink mark that I place. You just need one. By the way, if your belt's broken, obviously you can just take the belt and line it up here and just measure it like you would measure a piece of string. But if your belt is in good shape, right? Let's say you took the belt off and it's not broken, but you're thinking, well, maybe I need to replace it. Yeah, you can cut it. If you know you're going to replace the belt, you can just cut it, and you don't have to do this little roly-poly exercise that I'm going to. But I take the belt and I line up the mark, the little ink mark, with the beginning of my edge, just like that. Let's see if I can maybe zoom in a little bit for you. I don't know how much that will show up for you guys. All right, so I'm going to take the blue mark there, right? I've got it on the edge, right? And then I'm going to roll it. I'm just going to hold it and just keep rolling it like this with my fingers. Okay, don't let it slip or you won't measure correctly. And I'm doing that. Okay, so as you do this, just keep watching for when that mark comes back around. And zoom back in for you. And notice that the mark lands about 13, and I'll call that 13 1/4. Okay? Now, these belts, you can, when you go to get a belt, remember there is some adjustment on the motor bracket, but you want to aim for there. So if they have a belt that's not 13 and a quarter, but maybe it's like an eighth of an inch shorter or an eighth of an inch longer, you may be okay. But this is what you're aiming for. Sometimes you can order the belt and you'll just say, I have a white model 568, and they'll say, oh, it takes this. Be careful. You just want to make sure. Some sellers will have belts and they sometimes make mistakes. They're honest mistakes, but you want a belt that fits, obviously. Okay, so back to the matter at hand. We are going to change the belt on this, and it is not going to be as bad as you think. If you have watched my videos on how to disassemble the clutch mechanism, I promise you it's not that bad. Now, I'm going to turn the machine for a moment because I want you to see, just to make sure. So right now, the bobbin winding mechanism, the lever is down, so it is not engaged. Okay, everything is put back as it should be. And when you turn the hand wheel towards, we're behind the machine here, folks. We're in the back here, right? So normally I'm in front of it. You would be in front of it. You're pulling the hand wheel toward you. Notice that you see the needle bar moving up and down. We have power to the drivetrain. That's ready for sewing. This machine is not, but this is the kind of action you would see, right? Okay. When I engage the bobbin winder, again, we're seeing this from the back, okay? I'm just going to push, and you won't see anything moving here, but now watch. Now you may have seen the needle bar hop. That can happen, right? But generally speaking, it doesn't really move. It is working just fine, right? So I'm turning it, and again, your needle should not be going up and down. It will wiggle a little bit sometimes, but you should be able to wind your bobbin fine. That happens sometimes with any machine. There's nothing unique about the white in that regard. Now, so what are we going to do? I told you you can do this without taking this mechanism apart, and I'm determined to back that up. So what are we going to do? The first thing we're going to do, and I demonstrated this in the last video, or the last two videos, I'm going to take a very small flat screwdriver, okay? Not a big one. You want one with a very thin, it's tapered very thin. So I don't know, I think that whole screwdriver is probably 4 inches long. But get something flat that's small. Some of you may have sewing screwdrivers that are in your sewing notions that could work. And remember, as I showed in the other videos, when you do this, okay, when you get your screwdriver in and you see the cap start to lift, don't pry it from one place and pop it off, because you're going to really stress this plastic. And this plastic, you know, it's old enough to draw Social Security, so we don't want to be too rough with it. Okay. So then I'm going to come around. I'm going to just do a little bit of prying all around. This will prevent warping. This is good for even when you have something made of metal. You don't want to warp it. And now I have loosened the cap without hopefully making it too distressed, and it's come right off. Remember that this cap is held on with plastic, sort of like a built-in clip, right? And it's pressure, so it's designed to flex, and that pressure that these pieces push against the rim hold it in place. And when we put it back, I'll show you that. Just you're going to be very gentle putting it back. Not a big deal. This cap doesn't do anything other than cover this, and it prevents. It's actually a good thing to keep because you don't want threads and things getting snarled around there, because thread has a way of finding all kinds of places to get squirrely. Now, if you remember, if you did see the other videos, you don't have to watch those, although I recommend it if you own one of these machines. So the lid, or the cover of this machine, sits on it like that. Now, you don't have to take the lid off. For this procedure, you can. Taking the lid off to disassemble this mechanism was totally useless. You don't have to do it for that. But when you're changing a belt, it might make it easier for you to see what you're doing. Okay, so I'm just going to take it off. Now, what are we trying to accomplish here? What we want to do, obviously, this is too tight. This belt is not going to fit in here or on the other side, on the front side. Okay, so what have we got to do? We do not want, you do not want, I do not want to disassemble this entire mechanism solely for the purpose of putting in a new belt. or taking one off that looks like it's tired. So remember, for those of you who've seen this for the first time, you got a machine that looks like all the other vintage machines that have clutch knobs, but this one doesn't. It has a very strange looking center to the hand wheel. So you will remember, if you're not sure about what this spring is and how it goes in, please watch the videos that I have on this mechanism. Okay, so we can just simply just put it to position there. This spring is actually held here with tension. The spring is actually bent into a U shape. I didn't bend it, it comes that way. And when you're looking at it, you're basically, it's like a clip, okay? It's a spring clip. So watch as I pull down. It's usually easier to do the top. Hold on to it. Hold on to it with both hands or it's going flying. You don't want it flying into you or someplace to get lost, okay? So I'm gonna zoom in. A little too much zoom there. Okay, so I want to show this again. So I got the spring there. Let me come around here, maybe get out of my own way so you can see a little better. So with two hands, come down and you're going to pull, and then you're going to pull towards you and hold on to it, don't let go. And that spring has now been released from one end, right? And you see the shape, how the spring turns into a semicircle there. That's because it's resting just like the other end. If I hold it up like that, you can see the shape, right? So these ends, these curved ends rest, they nest against a bolt, a smooth bolt. And then this one does too, right? And so when you're doing it this way, you'll find that these lock rings, you may have heard me call them washers, I misspoke. These are lock rings, these little silver pieces, and they keep this spring from falling forward, falling toward you or toward this direction. So I'm just going to take that off. Now, this was one of the procedures that I showed in the videos when you're disassembling this hand wheel clutch mechanism, okay? This is the only part I'm going to take off to do this procedure. Do not remove these bolts, right? You don't have to, and you will enjoy this more if you don't. So, okay, remember, for those of you who saw the other videos, if you haven't, I will demonstrate this for you. There's a plate here, and there's a spring behind it. This plate has holes that are designed to go over these bolts. But I've got these bolts pretty snug, so I'm going to just turn just barely. Do not loosen the bolts. You're not taking these bolts out. Okay, when I say loosen, I mean just give it one just brief, like that. All right, I just barely loosened the bolt, like just a little bit. Okay, not even 1/8 of a turn. You don't need to. You're not loosening the bolts. You're just trying to take. They were pressuring on against the plate. Now, this plate is spring loaded. When I had my clutch mechanism lever down, the plate felt like it was, kind of holding on there. So when I pushed up and engaged it, there's a spring behind here. That spring pushes on that plate a lot more when you engage the bobbin winder. So that made it a little bit easier. Now let's go back, and I'm going to show you. This is sort of how this business really works. All right. I'm showing you from the back of the machine because I want you to see both the hand wheel and the motor pulley at the same time, because basically they're two pulleys, and those two pulleys are what your motor belt is going to be hanging on. So let's make sure I got that. I want to make sure that is in the picture. Let me zoom a little bit back out. I want to make sure that you don't miss. I want you to see. Okay, we've got our motor pulley, we've got the hand wheel pulley, and we've got this space here. That's what I wanted to come into the camera. All right, So remember, I pulled this plate over these bolts. It actually will slide. Okay, so if I push back in, right, you see the top portion of the bolt is smooth, right? The threaded portion is in the hub. You won't see that. Now watch. Because we took out the big giant, come here. When we took this big spring out, that gives room on this bolt for this plate to move. But it's not going to fall, right? Because you've got your little clips here, right? Now, why is this necessary? Because yes, we are going to gently and carefully shift our hand wheel out just that much. That's all we're doing. Do not force the hand wheel beyond where that plate is, okay? So let's turn the machine again so you can see. Look what we've done. So now we've got more room. This spot here, this is what we're trying to get that belt past, okay? Now you have access to the hand wheel without undoing all of this business that I highlighted when I was overhauling the clutch mechanism. I was basically opening it up to look at it. It was fine, and then had to figure out how to put it back together. Anyway, so you've got your belt, right? You got the right size, okay? I would suggest starting with the hand wheel first. We'll get to the motor pulley in a minute, okay? So you got your belt. You're going to slip the belt over. There's plenty of room now. And make sure that when you put the belt on, right, and the other side, if you're on one side of this, you may have to, actually what you could do is literally, you could stand all the way up and you could look overhead, and that actually, that actually might make it easier when you're trying to get the belt on, right, because you've got the machine sitting here. Now I'm going to pull I just realized when you have the clutch mechanism engaged, it's pushing up, right? Notice that it was kind of in the way of where I wanted my belt to go. So remember, once you've put, you may not even need to pull this mechanism up to get the plate to sort of, it was kind of wanting to stick, but it will move for you, okay? Just disengage your clutch. You don't really need it there for this. Now, look closely and you will see see if I can get this to come up a little bit more. Trying to get a certain angle for you so it'll make me a little more self-explanatory. Maybe nothing is. So when you look at this, you're going to notice that, in fact, I'm going to move the perspective for you. Let's get this here. I want you to see the groove in the pulley when I'm doing this. I think it will make more sense to you. So now you can see the top. Okay, I'm going to take the belt, and you may have to notice that the belt, you can always turn it sideways, right? So if if it wants to fight you, and see, the wheel is shifting, but we haven't done anything dramatic to the wheel. We have not messed with the mechanism. That's why you only want to come out this far. You don't want to take the bolts out and have the wheel come off. Then you'll have to reassemble all the mechanism, which we covered in another video. All right, so I'm going to take the belt. If you need to, you can turn it sideways so that the teeth are sort of like that, right? Sort of, you can see facing you. And the belt is going to slip. And what you'll notice is, there we go. That is the angle I wanted for you to see. So, again, you've got the belt, right? You can face the side of the belt toward you, which means it might make it a little more narrow and easier to get. So when you come down, the first thing you're going to touch is an inner part of this hand wheel, but that's not your pulley groove, right? So just let it slip, and it will slip down. I promise, there is enough room. And now your belt is in its pulley space. And just to be sure, remember that, we got it here, but let's check. You're seeing this from above, but now you're going to want to look from the back. Okay, let's make sure everything is lined up as it should be. We want to make sure that that belt is in fact in its pulley space. The belt, you don't want the belt to be up here, okay, that's a rim, but then the pulley valley, if you will, the little groove, it sits right here, right? So that's why the belt is now flush with that rim. So we got the back lined up pretty well. Now we got to take a look at the front. Now, when you see the front, you'll understand why it's good to look at both angles. So remember earlier when I had the clutch mechanism up, you can see it was wanting to get in my way. So you can just put the clutch mechanism down. You don't need to keep that up. You may not even need to raise it. I did to kind of get that plate to wiggle a little bit. That's not always needed. Now, look here. You've got your belt up here. Right here, the belt's in the groove. But notice, if you notice where the belt is, we want to make sure that the belt is going to seat on the groove and not hang up here, right? When I first put it in, it was in the groove on the back and the top, and then it was sort of flopping onto this upper level, and that's not what you want. So while you've got this handle out, go ahead and slide it down. Now it's hanging there. It should be fine. It really shouldn't cause any problems, and we're just going to let the belt hang there for the moment. Okay, I've moved the view back up top. Make sure that the belt doesn't pop up, and because you don't want the belt to sort of spring up, and if it gets in here, if that belt pops up and gets between the edge of your machine head and the hand wheel rim, then it will jam and you won't be able to get the hand wheel back where it needs to be. Now notice what I'm doing here. Very slowly and gently, just push until it stops. And you should have, it looks like maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so between the hand wheel and the edge of the machine. And that should be where your hand wheel is going to go back. That's where it wants to be. That's its normal spot. Obviously, we're not done yet. So now we need to go back and we're going to get the plate reseated. It's not going to be hard because, you know, we didn't undo very much, so we don't have much to put back. Okay, so now we don't have very much left to do. I know it may seem like there are a lot of steps to this, but it actually, once you've seen how it's done, it really should not take that long to perform. Okay, if your belt is in good shape, you literally can inspect a belt when it's on the machine. You don't have to take it off to inspect it. I knew I was going to take my hand wheel apart, so I went ahead and did that, took it off. But you can literally take your flashlight when the belt is installed, like, well, we're not fully installed yet, right? But you can take your flashlight and you can inspect the belt even when it's hanging on the hand wheel. You can look for cracks. You don't have to take it off to inspect it. For my purpose, you do have to take the cover, the little shield off the side of the machine, but that's nothing. Okay, so here we go. What do we got left? Right, we pushed the hand wheel in, right? And you saw, I don't know if you noticed when I was pulling on the belt to show you that you can inspect it. You know, that hand wheel wanted to come, but thankfully our screws are doing okay. So you want to push back in, right? That's the reason the plate wants to come out and cover these bolts and comes all the way up, right? It comes all the way until it gets to your lock rings. The lock ring is what's locking that plate and keeping it from flying off because of the spring. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to snug them back down. I didn't turn them much, right? If you loosen these bolts too much, you know, the bolts will fall off and then you're going to have, you know, your plate and your spring. Don't do that. It's not necessary, okay? All I'm doing is putting, I think when the plate came out, it may have pushed the bolts out a little further than what I had originally wanted them to do. So normally you don't always have to, loosen these bolts in order to get your plate to move. My plate must have been really happy where it was and it didn't want to move. So notice I've got my plates, I've snugged them, okay? Don't over tighten, just when they stop, you know you're good. So I'm going to snug, make sure they're snug, they both are. Now my plate is moving, okay? So sometimes the plate, you know, you saw when I was trying to, it didn't want to move. It was probably caught on one of the bolts or something, but it's not broken. It's just, they're a little wonky that way. All right, so now the bolts are in. We're going to push our plate in. You can put it with, either hand that works for you. And I like to put this spring, when I put the spring in, it's called a spring clip. I like to, for me, it's usually easier when I take it off, I undo the top portion, and then when I put it in, I'll do the bottom portion first, okay? Now, remember, the bolt is round and it's going to fit, right? It's going to fit, get a zoom for you here, right? So the bolt is going to seat right in there. That's the only place it's going to go. It's designed to. So again, push your plate and get your first part of, there you go. And now I'm going to take, hold with both hands, I'm going to push the spring. You can see this like that, right? I'm getting it fairly lined up with the bolt, you know, approximately, and then you'll know it's seated because it won't move. Always hold on to the spring with two hands when you're doing this, because if you got one hand on it, it can go flying, okay? So just be careful when you're doing this. Now, all right, there's only one thing left to do with this hand wheel, that part of it, and I'm going to put the cap back on. And I've shown this in the other videos. Just remember, this cap has served many decades. It's made of plastic. Do not smack it. Do not get a rubber mallet out. Don't hammer it. Just take your thumbs and your fingers and it will grip if it's working. If it's not broken, and that's it. It should not go anywhere. All right, guys. It's all gravy from here. Okay? So we are going to finish what we started. We're going to finish with getting this motor belt on, and when we get the motor belt back installed, we'll go ahead and check its tension while we're at it. This is the best time to do it. Okay, now remember, your belt sometimes will want to spring up. Don't worry about that. It should still be in the pulley, right? It shouldn't have fallen off of the pulley, because that extension of the machine body up here is now helping to hold it from popping up above the machine. All right, so remember, we want our motor to be in the highest position, which means the bracket is going to be in the highest position when we go to put our motor belt on the motor pulley. That will keep us from stressing or putting too much stress on the belt or the motor. There's no need to do that. All right, so remember, I had snugged these bolts just to keep the motor from rattling around, so now I'm going to loosen them. I don't know if you saw, the motor actually sank just a bit there, right? And then we'll do it here. Okay. What do I want? I want there we go. You see the bracket? You see the movement? You want the bracket to come as far up as you can. If it's not moving, your bolts are too tight. You do not have to take the bolts. Do not take the bolts out. Okay? It's not necessary, and it just you'll add complication to yourself here. So you just loosen the bolts. They're fairly long, and there's a nice washer. I think it's a crush washer of some sort, and it is there to protect the bracket slots from the bolt itself. Okay, so make sure you put those, if you've taken those off, make sure those are there, right? So you got your bolt, and right here there a form of washer there. Now, because I have raised my motor up high, look at that. I was able to get the belt on, let's do it again, okay? And you may pull the belt somewhat. Make sure you don't have to. This is something you can probably do. You'll notice when I loosen the bolts, I raise the motor bracket. You could tighten the bolts again, but I don't think you have to. Just hold. You can just hold your hand here, and the motor's not that heavy, right? So I want the bracket. I want to see lots of slot here above these bolts. That means I've got this bracket up as far as it will go. And so when I pull, I'm going to pull the belt and kind of twist it, and there we go, right? Now, the belt right now is on both pulleys, right? But it's quite loose. If you're not done yet, because if you try to sew with this, it's just going to spin. The belt will slip, right? Okay, so what are we going to do? Now you're going to take, I don't know if you're right-handed. I'm right-handed, but sometimes I have to use what I've got here. So what do I want to do? I want the motor, and the bracket to lower, okay? And don't shove it all the way down, because that will be too tight. And we're going to let the bracket, if we need to, we might loosen the belt just a little bit more if we have to. No big deal. Now, I'm going to let the bracket, sometimes it'll want to stick because of the washer. Sometimes we'll grab it. Okay, so I've lowered this a good ways. Okay, now it's tighter. Now this is one of those things where it seems strange. You'll think you have it in a good spot. So I'm going to hold the motor here, try to keep it steady, don't let it move, and I'm going to see if I can lower our cam here just a bit. All right, maybe that's slightly better for you folks. Okay, so what am I going to do? Let's go ahead and do a first try at, we'll get our belt snug, and then we'll test. Whichever bolt is the easiest for you to see and access. Hopefully you won't have a camera in front of you like I do, so it might be a little bit simpler. And it'll go a lot better if you actually turn to the right, right tight, left loose is the old saying. This is one of those things that you do by feel, and it's, you know, there's no number, there's no dial that you dial in the exact tension. Okay, now I'm going to come up here, if I can see it, there you are, that upper bolt, and I'm going to snug it. Now I haven't tightened them super tight. One of the few bolts that I tighten more than others is the bracket bolt, because the motor bracket, it's not just the weight, the motor bracket is under tension, right? Because the belt is pulling on it. And this is the secret to a happy machine and a happy belt and a happy you. If a belt is too loose, you will know, because it'll either not sew at all, the needle won't move because the belt is getting no traction, that's really loose. Or if the belt is somewhat loose, you actually will see it, you know, you'll be able to sew a little bit, and then all of a sudden it'll stop, and then you'll hit the pedal or your speed control, and it'll move again. Sometimes you'll hear, especially with a lugged belt, you'll hear a little sound that it's making. That means it's slipping, okay? It's not broken, we just haven't. There's a happy medium with belt tension that's very important to note. So how do you know? This is a test, and it is a very seat of the pants type of thing. The good news is you will know when you have it right, because your machine will sew, and you basically want to have the least tension on your belt that allows your machine to sew, and even when you're sewing heavy fabric, the belt won't slip, okay? That does not mean it should be drum tight. Do not make it drum tight. When you do that, it shortens the life of the belt, but it can actually harm or shorten the life of your motor, because it really stresses the motor because remember, your motor's pulley has its own little drive shaft. There's a little baby drive shaft there, and it goes all the way through the motor. So be good to your motor. These motors are they are made incredibly well, and they can last a long time. So, all right. So what's the test that I've been describing? Make sure your bolts are, you know, snug, but they don't have to be final snug, because we may need to make some adjustments. So I'm going to take this. You can do your finger if you want to. Again, make sure your machine is not plugged in. So I'm going to take my finger. I'm just going to push. I'm going to touch the belt where it is with your finger, just very lightly, and then push in. All right. I want about, what do I want? I want to see my belt move about 1/4 of an inch. Okay. So this is this is not even analog, folks. This is really be still. Okay, so I've got it on that too, right? If I push, I touch with my finger just barely. When I push in, I want to see about 1/4 of an inch play. Play meaning how can I push the belt in before it starts to really push back against me, right? And so you have to kind of hold. I don't actually use a measure anymore. I just kind of eyeball it because I've done it so many times. And you can do it. I don't think you have to have a measuring tool here, but I want to sort of describe what I'm talking about. You got to hold this measure in line, but don't let it touch the belt, because that affects the tension on the belt. So I've got like a tiny little space between the measure and the belt. I don't want it to touch each other. Okay, I put my finger, I touch the belt, and I push. I want that pushing to stop right about 1/4 of an inch Right now I'm getting about 3/8. So what am I going to do? I'm going to drop the bracket just a little bit more, okay? And you may have to fidget with it. You may have to go up and down a little bit, but you'll get there. Don't let it frustrate you. It's not something that you didn't do well. It's something that once you've done it, you're like, okay, I got this. It's like, I hate to say riding a bicycle, but it's kind of like that. Once you've gotten the hang of it, you won't have to do this very often. These belts can last, they can last a decent amount of time. Normally you have one bolt on a lot of your machines. I have two on this one. If you have this model or the other cousin models of this machine that I was describing, you may have to, you may have two bolts, but that's okay. I'm not sure if they did this to make it extra strong. I don't know why they did it. Even other white machines, other models did not always have this. Okay. Now, all right, see how I did. You guys give me a grade. So, all right, I've got the number 2 lined up there. I'm just barely touching. I push in. I don't know. I can push in, but it's a little tight. I want it looser. Now, you can drive yourself a little silly with this. You think, oh my gosh, how many times am I going to have to play with this? Sometimes you can get it right the first time. I've done that. Okay, come here. I have done that, and sometimes it's just, I don't know. It's the day, right? So sometimes you'll hit it. It's like if you've ever played billiards. Sometimes you're just on, and then other days you just got to keep at it. So remember, I know there's an old truism that says patience is a virtue, and God knows it is with this hobby. Okay, so the number 2, I got my finger here. I'm going to push in. Okay, that makes me happy. I'm really pleased with what I have here. I can push in about 1/4 inch, right? Again, this is one of these seat of the pants eyeball things. Now, when you go ahead and finalize the tightening of the bolts, you're not going to push them to the point that they break. You don't want it that tight. You don't need it that tight. And I'm going to turn it, and now it's stopped, okay? And it's pretty tight, but I turned, and a lot of times when a bolt tightens, I've done this when I've removed like an oil filter from my car. When a bolt tightens, you'll feel it start to get progressively tighter, and then it just says, I'm ready to stop now, okay? If I try to push this bolt more, I can, but that is sort of a point where you're overstressing the bolt, okay? It's a feel thing. Many of you have, you've had screws and things you've had to tighten before, bolts, but again, it turns easy, then it gets harder, then it gets progressively harder, and then it wants to stop. That's when you stop. Now, go back and check again, because sometimes when you tighten the bolts, it can actually cause your bracket to move maybe a little. In this case, it doesn't seem to have caused any issues. One last check, guys, and I promise I think we're done. Okay, so I just barely touch it. I push in. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to go with, okay? Now, are you ready to put that lovely cover that they started putting on machines in the 60s? Not yet. It's an easy thing to do, I promise. The cover itself is not an onerous thing. So why would I say hold off on putting this lovely cover back? It's not hard, right? You don't need to take anything else. It's designed to go just like that. I have the 3 bolts that will go in. And remember, this, unlike the rest of the machine, this is plastic. When you put your bolts in, be gentle. Don't get in a hurry. Don't go crazy. You'll turn the bolts in, and eventually you will. When that bolt begins to snug, you're not going to do like you did with this bolt, because this is steel and this is steel. And even then you have to be respectful. This is plastic, guys. So when you put the bolt in, and I have dutifully saved mine in a box so that I would not lose them. So when you go to do this, we'll just do this one here so I can show you what I mean. So obviously, you see the threaded part of these little bolts, they're going to go into steel, but they're going to rest on a piece of plastic. This plastic has survived 65 plus years. There's no reason why it can't. Just when you go to turn this bolt, unlike the other ones, first of all, we needed a little bit more pressure on those bracket bolts because of the tension that they're under. They have more to hold on to because you have a motor pushing a belt under tension there, right? Now this is a cover. The only reason we have bolts on this piece at all is just to keep it on the side of the machine, right? So this is a steel, it's probably nickel plated bolt, little bolts here, right? And notice I'm turning it. And unlike the steel ones, this won't really get all that progressively more difficult. As soon as it starts to, like here it's turning easy, watch this. If that's it, look at that. And then right there, it stopped. And the bolt said, hey, stop. And I did, okay? Never get into a debate or argument with a bolt that's going through plastic because it will win and you will lose your plastic, okay? So that's it. And now, why did I not finish this? Why did I not go ahead and put the cover on? Because I'm not done. Before you put your cover on, it's not hard to put on or take off. What you might want to do is test the motor, okay? So you're going to want to take your machine before you put the cover on. You've done all this work. You've got your new belt, if you have a new one, or you put the old one back on. You've gotten it adjusted, your tension, but the proof is in the pudding, and that pudding is in your machine. So what you might want to do is to take, you will have your machine set up, okay? And this one is not ready to sew. But let's say you've done it, you've gotten it, you know, your machine is good to sew. Go ahead and try sewing something and listen to your motor. You can run the needle. Make sure, by the way, whenever you run a machine to test a motor or belt, please make sure that your pressure bar is up, in the up position. Get where you can see it, right? If it's down, often your presser foot will be right there and your feed dogs will just chew and grind and scratch them for no reason. Always lift up your pressure bar, right, with the lever when you're going to do this. You plug the machine in and you listen to it, right? So if I want to hear this machine, this motor run, I'm not going to do it yet because I have not overhauled this machine yet. You all know my rules. I don't ask a machine to do cartwheels when I'm trying to wake it up. It just needs to wake up. They're like us. When we get up in the morning, well, some of you may be rays of sunshine, but I take a while to sort of get going in the morning. It's lifelong. I've been that way since I was a kid. So make sure that your machine, if you have a machine that's not being overhauled and hasn't sat for 20 or 30 years like this one, what you'll do is you will plug your machine in and you can run the motor just to listen to it, okay? Watch that the belt is not slipping. You'll know because you'll hear it, okay? Sometimes if the belt is too tight, you may or may not, it depends on the machine, you might hear your motor make a groaning or struggling sound. Now that's hard to replicate. I don't really know how to replicate it for you. So you'll have to learn to listen, right? You'll have to be you'll have to be a whisperer to your machine because you'll know your machine inside and out if you don't already. So there you go, folks. By the way, if you do what I just described, you've been testing it, just running it. You've got the lever up, no fabric. If all of that sounds okay, then you're good. Then you're good to go. All right. So then you can sew some fabric scraps and check. And if your belt is not slipping, okay, and you've still got this little bit of play here, you should be okay. You should have gotten everything together basically. Now, one thing to note that I meant to note earlier. Remember when we put the hand wheel back, we had the belt on and we started playing with the belt down here and we tightened the bolts, we put the spring in and everything was good up here. If you're worried that when you move the hand wheel just ever so slightly, it should be okay. If you're concerned that any of those little intricate parts that are part of that mechanism that I showed in those other videos, part 1 and part 2, if you're curious to see as to whether it's, is my machine okay, or did I upset all that? Did I upset something in here? It's easy to check, right? So again, we're looking at the back of the machine. So you'll be, again, if you're on the front of the machine, obviously the wheel's going toward you. And look, we have needle bar movement. That's because our clutch mechanism is disengaged. All right, so let's now turn things around. Now we'll see it from this angle. We'll push our lever up to engage, or disengage, I should say, the drive shaft. And now when I turn it, I'm turning. Now I did get a little wiggle there, right? But it's not bad, okay? Sometimes that will happen to you, and normally say, hey, why isn't this engaging? You get some wiggle, but that can happen. But basically, you can always check, right? I would have seen and would have felt something moving in that mechanism because I've been playing with that mechanism for a long time now to be able to explain to you how the mechanism worked. So if you've got a machine and it's happy and you're taking care of it, you do not have to do part 1 and part 2. You do not have to take this whole mechanism apart and play with the magnets and the towels and the surgical procedures that I showed. If you only want to change your belt, this is how you can do it on this machine and the other models I have listed. And I hope this was helpful for those of you who eventually, if you come across one of these machines and you need to change your belt, well, it's a little different. But you know what? It's not hard. And these machines are incredible. If you get an opportunity to get any of these models, don't avoid them because they have this. Just, knowledge is power. Now you know what there is. There's a chance that no one's really taken it apart before. I have a feeling that a sewing repair center put this belt on, and they must have gone in and had to have known the procedure. Whoever owned this is lucky that they didn't lose any parts, because I am hopeful and determined that once I have gone through the rest of this machine, I hope to bring it back to life, get it awake and ready to work for a new owner. Thank you all for watching a video that is now 52 minutes plus long, but this is something I really think that is helpful for you to know, and I don't think it's going to take you 50 some minutes to put your belt on, but explaining these things takes a little longer, unlike the other techniques for belt adjustment and installation. But you know what? I think you all have figured out by now that any 1960s white machine, I can't pass them by. I've been beginning to formulate a playlist of what are going to be my favorite machines, and I've always hesitated to do that because there are so many great machines out there. But in terms of favorite machines to work on, I think even those of you who've watched this channel for a long time, I think you've already started to get an idea of what machines I typically. I love them all, but I have a extra love for certain ones. And this series by this company and this time is certainly one of them. I hope all of you take inspiration and are unafraid to take on fixing your machine, caring for your machine, or maybe you're going to start restoring them like me, because we need more people out there doing this. There are tens of millions of these things still out there. And if everyone who subscribes to my channel, everyone who's ever looked at my channel, if you took up this hobby, we would never get to them all. So I would encourage you to, investigate, and at the very least, you can hopefully take great care of your own vintage sewing machine, because if you have one and use one, you probably already appreciate how amazing they are. Thanks for supporting, everyone. We'll see you next time.